Welcome to the Level Set. I am Attorney Larry Fields, and I am just pleased and overwhelmed with joy to be joined by a full complement this morning. I have the Mike Jones, Dr. Charles Alexander, and my man, Attorney Jerry L. Kwame Christmas, whom we celebrated the wonderful life of his mother this week. Is here, and so we are going to with we could fashionably call this the last show of the year, but we have a show on next Saturday with a different complement. But for this collective, this is roughly the last show of the year. So what we want to do is almost like the birthday boy or birthday man, Dr. Woodson would do in Black History Month, and that is take a full look at what we did this year and what we need to do in the coming years. So this show is going to primarily focus on where we are as a community and where we need to go. And to set up the foundational framework for that is none better than the Doc Mike Jones. Please, Mike, if you don't mind.
And good morning, everybody. When you get to this point in life, from where I am, you spend a lot of time reflecting on what you did, and you realize that often you didn't spend enough time while you would actually, in action, being retrospective. And I think one of our issues, in particular in this moment in America, we ought to hit the pause button and have some internal, individual, and collective reflection and conversation with ourselves and with each other about a couple of things. One, where are we in this moment? What does this moment not look like? But what does it mean for us? Not what it means for America, not what it means for white folks, just what does it mean for us? And as we assess that moment, we need to be mindful of the journey that brought us here. Now we need to be more than mindful. We need to be informed by the journey that brought us here. And then we need to ask ourselves a question. Now that we're here, now what? And I would reference one of my favorite iconic black uh, artist personality, Miles Davis. So when Miles was asked, well, what happens when you play the wrong note? His answer was, there are no wrong notes. It's all about what you play next. And we spend too much time analyzing the wrong note and literally no time thinking about what you play next, though. Because if you get the next thing right, what happened before ain't even wrong no more. It's just a setup for what you're doing next. So it's a moment, it's happened. You don't undo the moment. You move on from the moment, but you use that moment to inform you.
So,
And
so, so when the pendulum switched the way it has with Project 2025,
right,
you're telling me that that's fine, but the moment that, but what we do with that is is this positive could be this positive of all that foolishness.
right. Well, put it like this: what we do with it is more important than what it is. Okay, we can't do anything about what it is. They played that note. Okay, you can't unplay that. But we can't stop the song. We can't stop the concert in the middle because of that note. Okay, we still all playing, and Herbie Hancock. This is a young Herbie Hancock telling this story because I had never heard the story behind Miles's question, but he talked about they were playing something wherever they were playing, and he's young telling this, so he was even younger when it happened. And he said he played a chord. He said it was just flat out wrong. He said it was so bad that he did this at the piano. I mean, he just said, and he said Miles looked at him and paused only for a second. He said it wasn't even a second. And then he played something that took Herbie Hancock's mistake and turned it into something else that was profound. He said, because for Miles, it wasn't a mistake. It was just something that happened. So what do you do with that now that we're here? And he said, because was my takeaway from it too. And I heard the story. I was a lot older than he was when it happened. But he said he realized that wasn't even just about music. That's about life. It's like, okay, well that happened. Okay, now we can sit here and talk. We can talk about that, but we're in the middle of something, and we can't stop because that happened. We still got to keep doing what we're doing. So, uh, for the last 30 years or so of my life, when moments like that have happened to me when I'm working, and when I was working, something like that was always happening. And I remember I was in the mayor's office. It was when we were doing the convention hotel, and something was going wrong every week. I mean, it never went right until the end. And Sidney Bartholomew, the former mayor of New Orleans, was on the development team and people doing the hotel. And Sidney and I became great friends and have been for the last 30 years. But we were having a tough week, and Sidney and I were talking. He said, "Well, Mike," he said, "what you gonna do?" I said, "Sidney, I don't know, but I know as long as we got clock, let's keep playing." Okay. The game ain't over. The fat lady ain't singing, and the score don't count till the end. Okay, so the difference between the fans and players, when everybody looks up at the clock scoreboard, fans are looking at the score. Players are looking at the clock. They just want to know how much time I got left. And I'm going to make adjustments to what I do, not based on the score, but based on the clock. And as long as you got clock, you keep playing. And that's the whole point of that Miles Davis story. We're still playing, man. Don't worry about that. But you got to do something about it. It can't be like, oh my God, I got to stop it. We can't. No, you're going to have to take that now and
You
do
get
something with it.
and I saw that clip that Herbie Hancock was referencing.
Right.
And it was and Miles in all of his elegance, wisdom, and just
And
beauty.
I should mention now that Larry reminded me. Larry sent me the clip because he and I shared the story over the years.
Yeah, but I mean, just the beauty that he dealt with that on
Right.
is just it's so symbiotic of what we've been able to do and not articulate.
Right.
Because I mean, we have made, one thing we don't give ourselves enough credit for is shaping this horror into a livable piece. And so Mike, it reminds me of your analysis of the election when you said, when folks were criticizing black men for not voting on 100% black, I mean, and your response was, hell, nobody has the right to get more than 80% of any particular voting block. Shit, if you were a sophisticated politician, that's what you get. So, but even in the face of what we have, I was just looking at the unemployment numbers. 92% of us are still employed. So, if in fact we got to bring up 8% of us in there, uh, based on the hostility and violence that folks have imposed on us with this discrimination and so forth. I think that we got to give ourselves more credit. Dr. Alexander, what are your thoughts? And we're going to go. Actually, let me do this. Let's go uh, to Attorney Kwame Jerry L. Christmas because he has a short clock, and we love to hear your thought today on these matters before you have to attend to another commitment.
I love the fact that we always had these conversations and we always are going back to figure out what we need to do and taking the lessons from what we've learned and how we can move that forward. What I find difficult in most of my peer group right now is nobody wants to have these conversations. Everybody wants to take the easy route. They don't want to take the opportunity to have these conversations, these real conversations about what's happening in our community and how we're going to deal with it. And I think we have some very serious issues going on right now, and we just refuse to tackle them, unlike our ancestors have before, or even as we talked about in the green room coming up, we won't even go back and look at the information so that we know how to attack these issues because these are not brand new issues that we're dealing with right now as a Black community. And I just really feel like our place and our purpose of where we need to be, we are just not defining, and we seem to be lost as a collective group. Where before we were able to move as a result, probably of the oppression and our inability to move the way that we wanted to, we were able to move better together than we are now. And we still under these same pressures that we were under before, but we just don't realize it and we believe that we're living in a better situation. And we're really not living in a better situation. I think we're living in a worse situation because we're doing less activism, less reading, and less getting engaged in the game. And that's what I think is extremely problematic for us right now. And I thought about our conversation in the green room. We talked about Ebony and Jet and all the publications that we had. And I was recently cleaning out the basement and found the Ebony magazine from September 1963 when I was born. You know, that's how much we held on to that history and that information and how much it meant to our culture that it's just very hard to find right now.
I think all of that is, cogent, well accepted, and true. Dr. Alexander.
And what we're dealing with Trump right now, that's no different than what we were already dealing with in the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s.
No, sir, not at all. And today, Dr. Alexander, your thoughts?
I agree with all that's been said, and I think I want to reference. I think you said this in the green room, Larry, Attorney Fields. Us establishing. You didn't use equilibrium, but that's kind of what you were speaking to. Kind of, establishing, what word you use?
Homostasis.
Our homostasis, yeah. So
Yeah.
essentially the same. But it is what Mike always says, and we reference this all the time. It's resistance, and that's our space. But and so to get to Gerald's point, and also kind of the point that we referenced in the green room, our conceptualization of time is off, and our ability to contextualize what we've been through, what we're going through, and what we're likely going to see is subsequently off. And so, and of course, that is all part and parcel of state sanctioned oppression and in the historical and contemporaneous oppression and trauma and subsequent trauma that we experience. And so our job is to condense, and consolidate all of these points of view and share it with the people, and to develop and nurture that critical mass, and not fall victim and prey to the that same thought and tendency that other people do. We have to accept the fact that everybody ain't going. Everybody ain't capable of going, and everybody don't want to go. And so
That is a very important
That
and
last
tough
part I think
piece.
is real important, Larry,
How
that
do
everybody
you
don't want to
deal
go.
with that? How do you deal with that, knowing that the sacrifices that you are making, you're making it for somebody that may be
Doesn't want it.
dismissive of you? I won't even say, that may be dismissive of you. Somebody that, I mean, that's going to fight you, somebody that's going to marginalize you. Everything you do is for their benefit. How do you deal with that, as and then that collective, the folks that are fighting against our interests? I'm sorry for such a
Yeah, but
ridiculous compound question, but that's how do you deal with that? I want to hear from both Mike and, well, from all three of you all on
yeah,
that.
I was about to tell Mike to go ahead first, and then
yeah, well, first, just a clarification. For those of us on level set who didn't get the advanced degrees, could you tell us what homostasis is, Larry? Just because that might not be the. I know we casually throw this stuff around, but brother, we got a large audience, and I don't want nobody to spend the rest of the time like me confused about. Because I've been doing this long enough, I can fake it. But I mean, when you throw something else like that out, man, and then because I think I understand what you're talking about, but for the room, okay?
That's hilarious. But anyway, it's your set point. You're not, and I'll let Dr. Alexander opine on it also, but it's your set point. It's
Okay.
your natural, your natural being, what normal is for you. And I brought it up based off of a statement that you made. You talked about the meta in the green room. You talked about the metaphysical aspect of where China is. Theirs is, harmony is what you said there. That's where they want to be. And I'm not, so this isn't Nirvana, and this isn't, it doesn't have any shades of, Nirvana. That's when you naturally feel almost like a natural high or a depression where, you're slightly worried. I'm talking about in the middle. What is your natural state when you wake up in the morning? What should be our theme? And too often, and I brought it up, the black community's theme is just leave us alone because you've oppressed us so long. But is that serving us? Should it be something else? What should we be striving for in terms of, or what are we epigenetically seeking, which is
Right.
peace, which is peace. So, that's the conversation we had. What is our set point?
Okay. And to that, to answer your question that Charles that you posed to Charles about what do you do with everybody who doesn't want to go even. Not everybody can't, everybody is not, but then everybody don't want to. Well, that's been in a
ever.
historical question. Yeah, that. See, that's not just a question for us. That has been a question ever since we've been here. And I think it's
Mike, right
fun.
quickly, did we always have do you feel like we always had this same number of people who didn't want to go? Because it just seems like we have more now.
No, because we romanticize our history. You know,
Okay.
Charles in the green room, Charles was talking
Okay.
about myths and legends, and there's a reason we have myths and legends because they basically symbolize in comprehensive terms complicated moral issues. I mean, we keep telling these stories for a reason. I think for everybody who chooses this path, and the three of us keep showing up in this space with each other, and for everybody who listens to us, we've kind of chosen a path. And for me, it took a long time, but when I wrote the column about and we've talked about the race man or the race woman, and I used Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass as the iconic or who epitomized that as two people who figured out a way to be free. They use their own ingenuity, their own courage, their tenacity to escape oppression. And when they were on the other side, or they were at the border, and they could have kept going forward, and done anything that they wanted to do for themselves, they came back for us. Okay, they didn't have to. They chose that, and that becomes as I've gotten older, as I've gotten old. Shit, now I ain't gonna call it older. As I've gotten old, you start to understand that the ethical and moral decisions you make got to have everything to do with you and nothing to do with other people. It's what you choose. There is, we talk about The Godfather and The Wire, but the movie that made the biggest impression on me was The Magnificent Seven, because they were gunfighters, they was killers, but they showed up in this town for these peasants who were being bullied and exploited by Eli Wallach and his gang of bandits. They were taking the food and stuff. And in the movie, and it's really a kind of moral story, and because there ain't nothing about these guys. They stone killers too. They just not feel like that. They got better ethics than the other guys. But it was too much pressure on the villagers to stay up with the fight, and they ended up betraying Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen and those guys. And you couldn't make the movie again because everybody in it wasn't a star at the time, but they went on to become superstars. Okay, you couldn't have, your budget wouldn't have been big enough to get them to do that movie 10 years later.
And plus, they would have overact. That's how you wound up with The Godfather 3.
Right, exactly. Right, they would have overacted. Before they just wasn't. James Coburn didn't hardly have any talking point. He didn't have a script, but they get betrayed. But Eli Wallach is the Mexican bandit because they didn't let Mexicans be Mexicans. He was the Mexican bandit. He said he didn't want to kill them because it might create a problem for him with you guys probably got friends. So he rode them out of town. He took the guns from them, rode them out of town a long way, and then they gave him the guns back, and they left, and they hopped off of their horses. And the one guy who was one of the seven, who was always there about the money, he thought they was looking for it must be some gold. For some reason, we're here fooling with these peasants, and he was getting his stuff, and he getting ready to leave. And I always remember James Coburn's character. He was the first guy off the horse and he started putting his guns back home. And the guy turned to him. He said, "What? You going back?" And James Coburn said, his character said, "Don't nobody throw me my gun and tell me to run." And they all got off there. And the old Brennan said, "Man, you don't have to go back either, because we all going back. Because you can't do that to me. And now it ain't even about the peasants no more. Okay? Now we're gonna clean that up. But the reason we going back is because you can't do that. And I'm not gonna let you do that. And then you give me the gun back too? Oh no. That I and fundamentally, whether it's Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Du Bois, there have been black voices, black people, Dr. King, Malcolm, H. Rap Brown, Huey P. Newton. We have this plethora of black folks, not the majority of black folks, right? Because the majority of black folks are like them Mexican peasants, okay? You know, it's kind of like they want to be relieved, but they just ain't got that kind of heart. But we keep producing enough people that say, you can't throw me my guns and tell me to run. And even though I could keep on going, I'm going back now. And I'm going back on my terms. And that's a personal moral decision. That's the existential question where you have to decide who you are, not who they are, not who's going with you. If don't nobody go with you with me,
Mike,
this is what I feel.
how much do you think the climate had to do with
First,
them
first of
developing
all,
that moral strength?
hold, Gerald, that's awesome. But Mike, golly, you can't throw me my gun and tell, oh my
Right,
God.
right. You
Come
can't.
on, man. Say it. I mean, you can't throw me my gun and tell me to leave. That is so profound.
That's wait a minute, I'm
We
10
have
years
got to
older.
understand that.
Right,
I mean, did that just hit me wrong? Because you can't give me my JD and tell me and have me watch you beat up somebody from the
right.
community. You ain't gonna be able to give me my law license and continue to discriminate folks, black folks in education and housing. You're not gonna be able to give me a medical degree and continue to have these medical disparities in our community the way they are. You can't give me a PhD in psychiatry and continue to have the same pressures of a system and blame it on something other than what it is and blame the victim and expect for me to be an accomplice and say that there's something wrong with the victim mentally. I mean, we got guns and we refuse to use them.
But you can't do that if my last name is Powell. You can't do that if my last name is Rice. You can do that if my last name is Obama. You can do that if my last name is
Jeffries.
Jeffries. You can do that.
You can't. You
And they've
absolutely.
done it.
But
And
Charles,
they're doing it.
I'm saying is what you at that moment what
No,
it's almost
I'm
an
agreeing
existential.
wholeheartedly with you, Mike. I was just
Yeah.
saying this is the battle.
Well, and that's why it wasn't but 7 of them in the village.
That's why I
It was
went with
40.
Selma.
It was 40. It was about 40 of Eli Wallach in there, but it wasn't but 7 of them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was like it was a whole it was a whole passel of Mexican bandits, but it wasn't but 7 of them.
Yes, indeed. You're both right. Go ahead, Gerald. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, you was right on point. You was right on point. I was just waiting on Mike to comment on really on both those points, the climate and that. You know, you
I
can't give
don't.
me as you indicated.
I think it's about who you choose to be, man. To me, now this is since we on Sunday morning, and I don't go to church, but I love the stories,
Mhm.
and I think for me the most of a lot of profound parable stories. in the Old Testament. I think the one I'm drawn to the most is the 6th chapter of Isaiah, where God is musing and he says, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Now that's a compound question. The first question is God says, who shall I send? Now he can send anybody he wants, and they gotta go. But that ain't his real question. His real question is, well, who wants to go? Who will go for us? And so everybody is faced regularly with that question, who wants to go? And the question is, when you go pick the day to be Isaiah, and Isaiah said, here am I, send me. That's all it comes down to. Send me, I'll go. Now that ain't, and he don't say I'll go if y'all come. He said I'll go.
That's right. No matter what the fallout is.
Right,
And it's
I'll
just a
go.
matter of your own personal courage.
That is correct. But see, that group is a different group than the peasants. See that
Right.
that we reference, and that's but we've got plenty of history on that, on how to deal with that group as well. Dr. Alexander, what are your thoughts?
On which part?
Yeah. Well, we're
I
talking.
just want to go back real quick to Mike's piece about homeostasis and equilibrium. It's the level set.
Really is,
That's
and I didn't want to use the
yeah.
definition in the actual. I didn't want to use the definition in the definition, but that's exactly what it is.
That's what it is. I forgot what our initial question
You
is.
ain't that old yet, man. Okay.
and in terms of people who don't want to go. Yes, this thing has always
Now and then.
this thing has always been, and I agree with Mike and one of the points I wanted to make in terms of again myth and legend. I mean, so like in our fantasies about what has been deemed the modern civil rights movement, if we was all together, it wouldn't have been 6 organizations. So we ain't never been all together. And so, and even in those 6 organizations, there was constant fight and struggle between them. And that there's fights between SNCC and CORE. There's fights between King and his contingent before they became the why is that leaving me? What's the name of the organization?
They was no before they became the establishment.
The SCLC.
The SDLC, and the NAACP, and there's contention. All the while there's contention between the NAACP, White and Du Bois, versus Marcus Garvey. They are complicit in the deportation of Marcus Garvey. It goes all the way back. It goes, you can go back into the colored conventions pieces and the arguments and debates about staying or going, and then for those who were choosing to stay, kind of what that looked like. Like, there's debates about how we go from, the African Methodist Episcopal Church and the African Lodge and the Free African Society to colored and Negro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are all debates about, that kind of reflect people's relative consciousness in, whatever time period. And here it is, a million years later, and we still have debates over things like how we identify, individually and collectively. And so that part of it, I don't think ever really goes away. And we still have folks who don't care and are indifferent. We still have folks who are, ignorant to facts, and we still have folks who are, down, with the fight and struggle. And so it's gonna always be, kind of this variance. Um, but we just got to know, and and when I say we, I mean, not just the level set, but folks of our ilk, have to know that it's our job, to present the information, to sound the alarm, and to take who will go. And so to the question of, back to the question about like what do you do with those, again, given that, so many of us, are of the Christian faith. The book is pretty clear on this. Everybody ain't going. So everybody ain't ready. Everybody can't. And so we need not feel, we could certainly be disappointed. We could certainly be hurt, but we need not, take a overly, we should not we should not take a disproportionate amount of the blame because of the collateral damage. That is the system, and so and that can be challenging because some of them folks are attached to us.
And the system is so very efficient. The brainwashing, the value, the actual value system, and we still have a lack of pattern recognition as well, Doc. You couple that with
And
that
so,
because if you look at this, I mean, it's right in front of our face. You look at it. I'm referencing Dr. Amos Wilson again when he describes Skinner's experiment. We continue to associate ourselves with the examiner as opposed to the rat that is manipulating the examiner that's manipulating a rat with its value system and getting these things done. And so once again, and when we've talked about it, and you brought it up in a wonderful and you cited a wonderful book, we underestimate the power of the adversary that we're up against.
yes, and it is this relationship, with the adversary that is the baseline. And so, so one of the things, and we've talked about that, and it's, the different ways that you can look at this. But the easiest way for me to always kind of grasp it is, the identification with the aggressor, right? And um, so we're always going to be up against that, and some folks are going to see it as it's more easy, it's more conducive. We got to align with that, da 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 da. And I often think it just to their demise. I mean, we have a good we have a good parallel, for how that can look when you take your stance. So, and all that stuff having to do, with the Gulf War and and the misinformation and the disinformation to justify that, black community, was taking sides with regard to Colin Powell, and people fail wherever they fail in that situation. But with our brother from Morehouse, um, you know, in the in the Navy, he showed us what you do when,
And good Omega man.
and he
That's
showed us.
right.
He's side chapter brother, and he showed us what you do when you take your stand.
Charles, uh, uh, I'm going to reclaim uh, my kind of regular intellectual stance on religion, because I don't want anybody who's first time listening, just because I quoted the sixth chapter of Isaiah and kind of got the quote right and stuff like that. I don't want anybody to get it twisted. I'm going to suggest something relatively profound and troubling for a lot of people, and that is we need to redefine our relationship with God. Now, religion is ubiquitous with Homo sapiens. There's literally almost no many anywhere there's substantial evidence of human beings, Homo sapiens, where there's any kind of settlement, and sometimes even no settlement, you can anthropologists can ultimately find some reference to religion, supernatural power, etc. So obviously, uh, there's something about humans that connect them to that. If you are an existentialist philosopher, you say that's the answer to the absurdity of your relationship with the universe. You just need some answers for why stuff is the way it is. And it's interesting the way Europeans and white Christians view God and religion versus black people in America. I don't know about black people anywhere else, so I'm not going. But with them, the Christian God is their rationalization, justification for them slaughtering and conquering people all over the world. In the Crusades, they say God wills it. Okay, so you got that, but it has always struck me how black people in America let God off the hook, because if anything good happens, everybody's first line, I want to thank God for this, and we regularly say, God is good all the time, all the time. God is good. So everything that's good is a function of your relationship with God. But we don't give God no responsibility for all our fucked up shit. Okay, now see the problem with being omnipotent is you don't get to pick and choose. You're omnipotent all the time. Okay, either you're omnipotent or you ain't. Okay, and if I'm not personally responsible for the good I've done or achieved, then I also can't be responsible for the stuff I messed up, for the messed up stuff that happens to me. Now, if I did this, then I own all of it. Okay, I own the good and I own the bad. So if you worship an omnipotent, omnipresent God who's responsible for all your blessings, at some point you got to have a conversation with him and say, hey man, what the fuck is going on with all the rest of this shit though, man? I need to talk to you about that because we've been in this relationship for a minute and I appreciate, let me thank you for all the good shit. But what about them? How, how, if you can do anything, tell me what fucking lesson I'm learning that you're trying to teach me that I got to be bothered with this shit. And if you were God, it seems like you could figure out a better way to teach me than that.
But we don't
There's
even want to. We don't even want to ask that question, though.
well, that's what I'm talking
That's
about.
the
That's
question that needs to be
the to
asked,
be
and I
asked,
think
right?
that you have, as an Orthodox Baptist,
Right.
I have a responsibility, and on top of that, um, once again, this miseducation or no
Well,
education.
there's an interesting movie called The Kingdom of Heaven, and it's about the siege of Jerusalem. Uh, when Saladin and the Muslims retook Jerusalem from the Christian Crusaders. But it's an interesting movie only for one scene in it, really. And the young guy that's in charge of Jerusalem got got drafted into it, and the siege is going on, and they're throwing fire bombs at each other. The shit's really bad, and the Archbishop of Jerusalem comes up to him because he's got this mass grave inside of Jerusalem that he dug, and they got the bodies in there with cover and stuff, and they go burn them. And the the Archbishop says, "Well, you can't destroy the bodies because the resurrection." And he tells him, well, if we don't burn the bodies, we're going to all be dead because of the disease and the infection that's going to happen from the decay. And then he tells the Archbishop something that is profound, and I think is worth the whole movie just to get to this scene. He says to the Archbishop, and God will understand. And if he don't understand, he ain't God and it don't matter. Okay, so fundamentally, that's correcting and to correctly understanding that relationship and it's our borderline, and I'm gonna call it borderline superstition as opposed to a rational position on trying to explain your relationship to the universe that messes us up. Okay, and we religiously go into spaces that strip us of our agency,
And we
which is the
do it willingly, Mike,
and
because
that's what I'm
even
talking
if
about. We willingly do
And
that.
if in fact you look at the Exodus in his own, God was very clear, I'm gonna give you this land, but you got to fight for it. So we are not doing our part. If in fact, because the adaptation of Christianity we have is a docile one that serves the status quo.
Well, it's
That's
the one we got. It's the one we got from our enslaver.
that's it. That is it. And Doc, if you don't mind, I want to read a short passage
Please,
from
this
Amos
Sunday.
Wilson. Um, and this is once again black on black violence. First of all, we got to do better. We have to broaden what violence is. Redlining, poor education system, all of those things are violent, and we've got to incorporate that and deal with it the way you would deal with someone being violent against you. But Dr. Amos Wilson states here on page 182, to a significant extent, white America is the reciprocal creation of black America. Whites cannot be what they are unless blacks choose to be or accept what they are. The relationship between white and black America is both a parasitic and symbiotic one. A change in one necessitates a change in the other. And the African American community is capable of self-determination and autonomous change. Going over to 183. Thus, the mental and socio-economic maladaptiveness of African individuals and peoples and their social relations and the political economic it is a political economic necessity if today's ethnocultural status quo is to be preserved intact. It follows then that the African American and African people in general must be subject to a deliberate and efficient program of white America, European created and sustained social, economic, cultural destabilization paradigms. These paradigms are reflected in the destabilization, confusion, alienated adjustment, and self-destructiveness of many African communities and nations.
Now, to that point, everything you're looking at with Donald Trump, you say, how could Donald Trump get to be elected the president the second time? And this year that we're just finishing up Expo, that it's the desperation of the white supremacy narrative that is losing its power and influence, trying to reimpose itself. And notice it's not a physical reimposition, it's a need to attack the cultural construct of the United States today and the intellectual understanding of everybody who is. So they're trying what they were able to do when they had numbers was create a culture that defines you. What we have done over the last 100 years, and because of the demographic changes with immigration and stuff, and the United States inability to maintain the military and economic hegemony in the world that Western Europe, they inherited from Western Europe. So that whole Western order of the last 400-500 years is collapsing. You're looking at the end of it now. I don't know what happens next. I don't know. It can go down, it can go up. What we play next is gonna be the key. But you're looking at the end of this shit. And you know what's the end? Because Donald Trump is the best they can do. I mean, this ain't Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar trying to reimpose the Western hegemony. They forgot to take out the white trash, and this is what's left. And they need to reimpose. And when you reject the intellectual, cultural dominance, you basically have rejected and torn up the power structure that is supported by it. So fundamentally, and you can know how committed white people in America are to this structure, because even white people who don't support Trump still have a need to rationalize him, even if you look at all the newspapers. You have yet to hear the white person come on TV, on MS Now, or whatever they call it now, and say, oh, that's fucked up. He's crazy. He's wrong. No, well, you see, it's like this. And maybe if they do it, no, that shit's fucked up, period. Okay? And there is no moral, intellectual justification for Donald Trump. None. And
Thank
for
you for
black,
that. Thank you for that language, that
yeah,
rationalization of him. I have been searching for a word
that's it.
because even the dissenters try and walk you through
Right.
a
That's
chronology
who I'm
where
talking
that
about.
is, but and there is absolutely no justification for it. Mike, thank you so much, because that one word really does attach to them the whole one issue that they all have together by
Right.
that rationalization of it. Thank you. Dr. Alexander, any thoughts?
Again, I agree, and we have to look at all of these things again as the work, and um and as we're going forward, you know we're we're always going back into the literature, and comparing where we are now, comparing our moment to how the elders, how the ancestors handled this in their time, and take from that what we can, and discard what we need to in order to be able to respond in the moment. And so to utilize Mike Jones' previous take, we're in our Shields Green moment all the time, and so what do we do in this moment? And again, part of our role and responsibility, and so Larry, you would respond. You mentioned pattern recognition. Pattern recognition can only work if there has to be an imprint. There has to be some information that facilitates the the ability to draw the comparison, and to make the analysis. And so so for example, where in the United States today, so today is Sunday. It's Sunday it's 10:56 Central. What pastor, what congregation, what Sunday school class is talking about, today as a day of remembrance, because this is the date that Dr. King, that Reverend King and Reverend Abernathy got on the bus for the first time after they, completed the boycott. So where? So what church, what organization, who's having that conversation to show and to mark the victory from what? Resistance. From the man they call passive. For the people that we keep saying, kind of had this all wrong until he da-da-da-da-da-da, because they don't read them, because they don't understand them. As he got older and he got more radical, what was more radical than that 25-year-old man putting himself and his family? That was his Shields Green. That was right. He could have said no, but he didn't. His wife could have said no. His wife could have said, "Bro, you can stay down here. I'm going back to I'm going back to my daddy's house, and I'm taking the baby with me." What's more radical than that? But ain't nobody having that conversation today. Where in America right now is anybody talking about Brother Patterson and Brother Robeson charging genocide today? 94 signatories on that list, including W.B. Du Bois. Who's having that conversation? Well, maybe nobody's having that conversation other than us. But after folks see this, some more people are going to have it. Some more people are going to have it, and they're going to keep having it, after this. And so, but, that's the thing. And so we have to create the imprint. We got to create, that image. We got to create that notion, so that when people start to see these things, so when what's brother's name, Larry? I keep forgetting the brother's name from a while.
Which one?
The admiral.
Let me get it. I want to give you his full name. So go ahead. I'll find it for you.
And so when we see the admiral, we should think of Colin Powell. This is the same situation. This is how the pattern recognition, this is how it works. Right? And so we should think of that. We should think of, Oh, so this is how you respond to
That
this
was
situation.
his brother Alvin Hosley.
So
Holston.
Wait a
when
minute.
brother
Admiral.
Admiral Hosley,
And he
right?
was a 3-star. And Charles,
And
to hold
and
that,
and he had the pick, the pick position. That is the position you work all your life to get.
wait a minute. And here's the point that you're making, and I want to illuminate just a minute. The reason the white boy admiral who was in charge of the situation, Halsey, Hagel, whatever the stupid white boy is, that's the Secretary of State, he had to go someplace else to get a commander for that operation. So he went to the Special Forces unit. Now, literally, American Special Forces are murderers. They assassins. So he went to get somebody who spent the last 30 years not in combat, but murdering people, because that's literally
What to do?
that's what they do. Okay. And so it wasn't a normal naval operation, because the brother that you're talking about would not have okayed it, didn't okay it. So he had to go to another command unit that was outside the Caribbean Command to actually do what he did. Because you couldn't order him to execute an illegal order. He said, we're not doing that. So the whole point is that everybody gets to decide in that moment who they want to be. Okay? You get to pick your destiny. Okay? You may have a fate, but you get to choose your destiny. And you say, no, this is where I get off. Okay? That now as long as I'm here, he said, well, then you won't be here. I said, you're gonna have to send me, you're gonna have to fire me. And that's what it meant when he quit. So the point is that the higher up you go, the more choices you have and the more responsible you have to become. So nobody is going to chastise or condemn the private or the seaman, because they ain't got no option. Them peasants in their village in Mexico, they don't have no options. But I'm a killer too, and the reason I chose the work I chose, the path I took, because I always wanted to be able to call my own shot and say, no, not no, fuck no, that ain't gonna happen as long as I'm here. And and you get to decide if you want to be Shields Green or John Brown or Frederick Douglass or Harriet Tubman. Everybody gets to choose. So if you decide to be a little bitch, it's because you decided to be a little bit. If you're a little bitch, it's because that's what you decided.
That was your choice.
You chose that. And that's the part that everybody has to own. That whatever you become, now there are people that everybody don't get that agency. There are people that their circumstances were so overwhelming that it wasn't any way through. But the reason we get fascinated with The Godfather and The Wire or Bumpy Johnson is because those are all men that chose something, a path to be, that allowed them their own agency, even if it meant they was doing terrible shit, because they were not going to be owned by a system. So if you think about when somebody says he's an outlaw, that means they're operating outside the system. That's all an outlaw is, outside of the law. And that doesn't necessarily mean, quote, they're doing illegal shit, but it does mean that they refuse to recognize the status quo. That's Robin Hood and Sherwood Forward's and saying, well, the king might be the king, but he don't run Sherwood Ford. And if you
It's,
come through here, we
and
rob it you.
but see, but we have to
Teach it
first of
like
all
that.
question a system that gives us embedded cognitive dissonance like that.
Right.
So the fact is that we are legitimizing a system that
Right.
embeds cognitive dissonance in us on a second to second basis. And so, the issue that we also have to confront is how much of us has been deadened, and to what extent we are culpable in legitimizing this system at all.
Larry, that's a difficult one because that's making moral judgments really about people's capacity for resistance. Okay. And everybody is not built the same way. Okay. And now when I was younger, I was really judgmental. As I've gotten older, I'm less judgmental. And I've kind of come to the point where you get to choose for yourself. You don't get to choose for anybody else. Okay. And you then kind of pick the people you want to be around and be with based on their morality. And I don't mean morality like they teach it in church, you don't steal, or that kind of bourgeois bullshit. I'm talking about fundamentally who you decide to be in the world. Okay. But or between you and the world. Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, that literally understanding it. In this world, this is who I choose to be. And I live with those kinds. It's why I'm a huge admirer of Miles Davis. It's not because he's a great trumpet player. It's just because he totally defines it. I think the answer I for the 10 years I wrote the column, nobody ever mailed me. If somebody would have mailed me something, emailed me something, I didn't like it, I wouldn't even answer it. Because my position, I don't give a fuck. Okay. If you don't like Miles used to say about his music, if you don't like it, don't play it. My position, you don't like what I say, don't read it. Okay. But no, I'm not accountable to you about nothing. That's your position on my stuff. This is, and here's after I write it, it speaks for itself. I don't justify it. If you got a question, I'll explain it to you because I think I owe that. But if you can't debate me about my shit,
That is
because
correct.
my shit ain't debatable.
No,
Okay,
sir.
it's mine.
That's
Okay,
it.
and if you get the right to disagree with it,
That's right.
but we ain't gonna be in no argument about my shit.
Dr. Alexander, what are your thoughts?
Again, agreed, and that's the stance, and that's how we move forward. You know, that's how we go
And
into the new year, and that's how we live week to week, moment by moment, day to day, week to week.
wait a minute, and I think we can say going into the next year something that's been implied every week we for every show we've done that this is a black perspective on American reality. Period. In the conversation. And I may debate somebody black about my perspective.
First of
But
all, I'm going to have to quote John Henrik Clark here, Mike Jones. You debate your equals and you teach everyone else. Ain't a whole lot of equals. You're not debating anybody, man. You are teaching. And I mean, Dr. Alexander, I mean, am I out of line? But I mean, there are no, your contemporaries, like Johnny Ola said, all the old ones are either gone or in jail.
Yeah, that's about true too.
Just
But
about.
this again, this is
But my
also
position is
how it
all
looks.
yeah, but my position is can nobody white talk to me about the black perspective?
No.
Okay, because this is what it is. It's how I see it. And unless you or me, you can't tell me about what I see and how I feel. Now you can say we didn't intend that, and I don't know if you did or not, but I'm just telling you from this side of the table, this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. Okay. And that's not subject to debate.
At all. At all. Dr. Alexander, last word and close us out for the next to the last show of the year.
Do your work, do your study, be ready for your Shields Green, your John Brown, your moment. Um, you know, get don't be satisfied with just knowing the myth and the legend. Understand the situation and context, and take what you take from it what you may to be able to apply it now. You know, it's that is the purpose of it, right? That's what we've learned from Carter G. That's what we've learned from Dr. Clark. Is that really the purpose of history is not for us to romanticize what has occurred. It is for us literally, to learn and be able to contextualize, see and see where we are now and what we can use and do with it now so that we can change the course um, of history. That's what this is for. And so let's be very intentional. Let's close out this year and go into the new year with that mindset. And and again, be on the lookout for advertisements with regard to our show next Saturday. Uh, I can't think of a better way to I can't think of a better personification of Kuji Shagalia than our guest next week, who will be uh, Brother Mukasa Dada, aka Willie Ricks, because there's nothing more self-determined than revolution, and this brother is the epitome of revolution, and he's going to be with us next week. For a live interview, maybe about an hour, 90 minutes. We'll see. He likes to talk. We like to talk. At at 12 p.m. Central, and so you'll see some advertisements about that, and we'd like for you to join us.
Amen. Mike Jones?
I'm good.
Okay.
Happy holidays and all that kind of stuff. Till next
Happy,
time.
happy holidays. And I'm good too. Dr. Alexander did an outstanding job of speaking for the level set. We thank you all for engaging with us and being in community with you all, with us. And we look forward to working with you and exchanging soon. And we wish you all have a happy and safe holiday. And if it's God's will, we'll see you next week.